Well, I didn't think you had it in you.
I'm your huckleberry.
Why, Johnny Ringo, you look like somebody just walked over your grave.
Get your life, get your life, get your life, baby. I got mine, why you could serve my mind, baby. Feeling me, that's why they killing me, lately. Get your life. Get your life, get your life, get your life, baby. I got mine, why you could serve my mind, baby. Feeling me, that's why they killing me, lately. Get your life. Run up when you see me, no disguises. Keep that thing with me, cause I don't do surprises. J. Chanel, show and tell, all facts, no lies, trick. Get your life, cause I'm the type to come to it that 9 quick. Eyes on me, what you care for? Watching me, baby, care for. If you ain't a fan, where the cameras? Hide in the back with the bellboys. My circle so restricted. Hands raised like it's your religion. When I sleep, pay close attention. Fake friends out here pretending. Get your life, get your life, get your life, baby. I got mine, why you could serve my mind, baby. Feeling me, that's why they killing me, lately. Get your life. Get your life, get your life, get your life, baby. I got mine, why you could serve my mind, baby. Feeling me, that's why they killing me, lately. Get your life.
Focus there.
Watch them cause they after me like a pot of gold. I'm not for play, ask Keisha if you don't know. I'm a little bit cray-cray, approach me, you better be right. If you don't come correctly, you can catch these hands tonight. Eyes on me, what you care for? Watching me, baby, care for. If you ain't a fan, why the cameras? Hide in the back with the bellboys. My circle's so restricted. Hands raised like it's your religion. When I sleep, pay close attention. Fake friends out here pretending. Get your life, get your life, get your life, baby. I got mine, why you could serve my mind, baby. Feeling me, that's why they killing me, lately. Get your life.
Get your life.
Get your life, get your life, get your life, baby. I got mine, why you could serve my mind, baby. Feeling me, that's why they killing me, lately. Get your life.
Get your life, boo.
Good morning, good evening, good night, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's your nighttime, right time DJ Music here with another episode of the Chop Shop. Y'all see what we're going to talk about today. I'm addressing my man, Cellulite Podcast. Before I go any further, y'all give me a 1 or a 2 down in the listening lounge if you can hear me loud and clear. If you don't mind, give me a 1 or a 2 if y'all can hear me down in the listening lounge. Hey there, Zahara. Good to see you. Hey there, Miss Jalen. Good to see you as well. Thank y'all so very much for dropping on into this episode of the Chop Shop. Before I go any further, let me just go ahead and say this. Cellulite Podcast. If you see this, sir, this is not about your sub count. This is not about how much money you make doing your streams. This is not about whether your particular channel is bigger than mine. This is all about the bad information that you put out on the stream that I was listening to in the clouds, concerning, the Southern strategy and the 3/5 compromise. Now, you say you have a big following, which is great. Kudos to you for that. I applaud you for getting out there, for being out there. But what I can't sit by and just say because okay he's got a big platform, that when I hear something that I know that to be incorrect, and I see at this point in time when I was watching your stream there was 687 people in there. So you were giving 687 people wrong information. Now I don't know how many of those people in there was white. I don't know how many of them there were black. I don't know how many there was whatever nationality. But all I know is the information that you gave out about the Southern strategy and the 3/5 compromise was dead wrong. So much so that I was compelled to screenshot 7 minutes of what you said, a little over 7 minutes of what you said. And that's what we're going to review. When we review you, Sel, then we'll go and then show you exactly what the Southern strategy consisted of, as well as the 3/5 compromise. You cannot have revisionist history, my brother. You cannot put out information just to suit your narrative and then think because you say it, it is correct. It is not. Absolutely is not correct. So let me go ahead and take this off the screen. And let's take a listen to Sel. At any time that I start borging, or if you folks can't hear me, somebody drop a little something down in the lounge for me so I can make sure that I'm not just up here talking to myself. All right. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let me stroll up here, get that off the screen. Hold on, Sel, I'm coming. I know you and your followers over there, they were hot and heavy about making sure that I was wrong about something. So of course, I never speak on information that I'm not sure about. If I'm not sure about it, you're going to hear this from me. I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to. I'm going to go do my research and I'll get back to you. But as I typed in your chat room the other day, Sel, the information that you're putting out is bullshit. And I will review this. So here I am. I am reviewing this. So this is what I screenshotted from your live stream the other day. About 7 minutes, I said. So we're going to listen to it. And then I'll stop it if I need to. Where are we at here? Let me turn my music down a little bit because I want y'all to hear everything. Let me turn
Mr.
the music.
Madison, what you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Okay, a simple wrong would have done just fine, but...
No, a simple wrong wouldn't have done just fine. I had to show you. that that incoherent rambling that you was on your stream talking about the other day, a simple Sel, you wrong was not going to suffice. So I have to show you. As some folks say, I'm from Missouri, the show me state. So I'm going to show you exactly where you were wrong at, Sel. Now let's get it.
As I was listening to this rather horrific speech, I really did think. I was thinking about American history, and I was thinking about Abraham Lincoln at Gettysburg. And some of you will remember a few days after that terrible battle, where thousands of Union soldiers died to end the abomination of slavery.
Don't talk about ending the abomination of slavery, because the Democratic Party was built upon slavery. Don't do that, Bernie. Don't.
Okay, let's stop right there. You heard Sel say that the Democratic Party was built upon slavery. Y'all heard that. That's your first wrong answer, Sel. The Democratic Party was not built on slavery. The Dixiecrat Party, which was down here in the South, was built on slavery. That's part of what you were trying to explain about the 3/5 compromise. But so far, starting off the bat, telling Bernie he's wrong, you're wrong. Now let's go.
Do that. Democrats love their slaves. That's why they fought in the Civil War against the North, because the North told them y'all need to get rid of that. The North told them y'all need to get rid of slavery. Does everybody in here? Did everybody in here pay attention in school, in history class? Did you go do your research? Did you go find out how the party switched when FDR came into office and he wanted to switch the party? He wanted to make the Republican Party seem like they was the racists. They were racist.
He said FDR wanted the Republican Party to seem like they were racist. Well, the Republican Party was originally was not the party of racists. The Republican Party, as we all know, that was started by Abraham Lincoln. That's why they consider Republican Party the party of Lincoln. Excuse me. Simply because you're right about that part. The North did not want the South to have slaves, even though they benefit of it. The reason why the North kicked up so much dust about the South having slaves is because the South was counting their slaves as whole people when it came to representation in D.C. But when it came back to going to places like Charleston, South Carolina, and North Carolina, and Virginia, the slaves had no say-so. So the North said, it's not going to work like that. Then what the North should have done is said, no slaves, period. But the North, with this 3/5 compromise, before the Declaration of Independence, before the Constitution, decided to write it into the Constitution cell that instead of counting your slaves as whole bodies, they will only be counted as 3/5 of a person. That's not me saying that, Sal. That is fact. That is written into the Constitution. Go look at it for yourself. The founding fathers of the 55 delegates, Sal, that created and ratified the Constitution, 25 of them owned slaves. So what would be their reasoning for stopping slavery? It was not. The only thing the North was really concerned about was the power of how much the power the South could have had if they counted their slaves as whole people, meaning they would have gotten more electoral college votes. Sale. You're confusing the Republican Party of today with the Republican Party of the 17 and 18 and 1900s, and they're not the same. But I'll let you talk some more.
Let me make sure that everyone understands exactly what I'm saying. The Democratic Party wanted to paint the Republican Party as the racist because the Democrats did not want to give up their slaves. Put a 1 in the chat if you heard exactly what I just said. The Democratic Party wanted to paint the Republican Party as the racist because the Democratic Party did not want to give up their slaves. It's called Southern strategy. Exactly.
No. See, again, this is the problem. Hey, Taylor. Hey there, Black Hawk. How y'all doing? Here's the problem, folks. When you go into these different streams and you sit in the closet, you listen, you will see that sometimes the content creators react off what they hear or what they see. The Southern strategy cell and the 3/5 compromise were in completely different eras. The Southern strategy did not commence until the 1950s. The 3/5 compromise was written into the Constitution. I don't think anybody that was born in the 1950s or was in legislation in 1950 was around when the Constitution was ratified. What about y'all? Put a 1 in the chat room if y'all know that, since they always like putting numbers in the chat room. Normally, a Black Hawk, I would have called this a loose nigger roundup. But sometimes I'm just gonna call this one of my brothers, one of my younger brothers, that's misinformed. That's how I'm gonna do this. I won't consider this a loose nigga roundup. Hey there, Shar, how you doing? I'm just gonna say one of my brothers, one of my younger brothers, my brothers in color and in struggle, got some bad information. That's how I put this. But no, sir. The Dixiecrat Party, the Dixiecrat Party, the Whig Party, the party of Jefferson, not Thomas Jefferson. You know who I'm talking about, the one that succeeded from the Union. Had nothing to do with the Southern strategy at that time. It wasn't in existence until the 1950s, 60s, and on up into the 70s. It even stretched into the 80s. And some will say, Sal, that it's still going on today. And we have evidence of that right now for what's going on in D.C., what's going on in Chicago, what's going on in California. We see evidence of, you can't say the N-word no more. You can't say nigga, 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 nigga no more, like Lee Atwater said. But you got to start using words like bussin', states' rights. And if you go all the way back to the Constitution that they writ, Sal, that's where that idea of states' rights came from when it came to slavery, sir. But I'm going to let you talk some more.
Amazing. Amazing.
President Lincoln goes to the battlefield. People just died a few days before. And he looks out at the assembled crowd, and in so many words, he says, these guys did not die in vain. They died so that we will continue to have a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And when I was listening to Trump and thinking about Abraham Lincoln, I was thinking...
Here we go. Craig says, Willie, how'd you come to this understanding? Can I ask if your father was present in your life? My mother and my father.
Now, that was a weird question to me. I don't know why someone in your chat would ask you that, Sal. Me, I grew up in a two-parent household as well. And I have other siblings, older and younger. But even from what my parents taught me and what I learned from my uncles and aunts and what I learned from my older siblings, and even, yes, sometimes what I learned from my younger siblings, what you're saying would have never, ever, ever came out of my mouth, sir. Never. This has nothing to do with a two-parent household. This is you as a grown man deciding that this is your stance on politics. What's up there, HT Ball One? How you doing, good brother? And again, let me read this comment so you know that it's not only me that think this way. And I'm sure you see it on the screen, but it says, "Hey there, Mr. DJ Music, salute." I was in the chat commenting against the bullshit and gaslighting that he seems very committed to. Still, I still think he's just on a grift because it's growing his channel. Well, there again, Sal, this is what some people think about your channel. Whether you make money off your channel, whether you have thousands and millions of subscribers, that's not my problem. That's on you. I hope you have success in what you're doing, bro. I hope you have success. Yeah. See, there's at least three of us that was in that chat at the same time. I was there, HT Ball One was there, and Black Hawk was there. Now, none of us have anything personal against you, but all three of us are thinking the same thing. That was some straight bullshit gaslighting that you were saying the other day. Straight bullshit gaslighting, bro. But here again, I could, like some folks said, I wish this was a loose nigga roundup. No, I just think you're misinformed, bro. So I hope you take the time to go back and look at some of the information that I'm presenting to you. and go back and correct the error of your ways. Go back and do a restream and say, you know what? I was wrong about the Southern strategy. I was wrong about the 3/5 compromise. You don't even have to mention me. And for the dude that was down in the chat room talk about he ain't got no proof, one of your minions, just like I told you then, and I'm going to tell you now, mind your business. I wasn't talking to you. Let's go.
Hard-working Americans was both present in my life. As a matter of fact, they're still alive to this day, and they're married happily. My mother and my father stayed in my life all the way from the day I was born until now, so they still here. And also in my siblings' life as well. I have multiple siblings. And yes, my parents did not grow up. No, I'm sorry, not grow up. My parents did not raise us off of the system. My family, my mother and my father, they raised up off of hard work, sweat, blood, and tears, goddammit. Big.
And here's that white supremacist talking point that you folks seem to think that's going to get you over by saying, my parents worked hard too, bro. My parents, I have 9 other siblings, so that means 10 of us. Not one day did my mother go to the welfare office. Not one day did she stand in the food line, whatever line. You did what you had to do back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s to raise your children. It's a different world back then. But a lot of the reasons why my parents did not go to seek government assistance is because, like you said, they were hard working. Sometimes, did we have everything that we wanted? Nope. Did we get everything we wanted? Nope. But it damn sure wasn't from the lack of my parents not working hard, sir. That's that white supremacist talk that y'all people like to come up with, saying, well, black people don't work hard. We just sit around and wait for handouts. You contradict yourself just by saying that your parents were hard workers and then come back with the shit that you're saying.
Shid 215 with $5 says, please explain why the Republicans are all about the Confederate. I appreciate you for your $5 super chat. I'll explain it. You said, why are they all about the Confederate? I see what that question is. I don't know. I don't know. Would you like to tell us? Because this happened last time. Someone tried to ask me a little trick question, and they tried to catch me up in something. I don't know. You please, by all means, tell me.
Well, it's not that it was a trick question, Sal. It was a wrong question. Let me see if I can go back and see what the question was again. It was the wrong question, though, but because you really couldn't give an answer for it. That's why you couldn't answer it.
And they tried to catch me up in something. I don't know. You please, by all means, tell me. But I appreciate you for your $5 super chat. Thank you. I don't know. Would you like to tell us? Because this happened last time. Someone tried to ask me a little trick question, and they tried to catch me up in something. I don't know.
I'm trying to get to the question.
But I appreciate you.
Let me back it up. Let me keep back it up till I get to the question, Sal.
In fact, they're still alive to this day, and they're married happily.
Okay, let's start
my mother and my father stayed in my life all the way from the day I was born until now, so they still here. And also in my siblings' life as well. I have multiple siblings, and yes, my parents did not grow up. No, I'm sorry, not grow up. My parents did not raise us off of the system. My family, my mother and my father, they raised up off of hard work, sweat, blood, and tears, goddammit. Big Shid 215 with $5 says, please explain why the Republicans are all about the Confederate. I appreciate you for your $5 super chat.
Okay. That was the question. It says, please explain why the Republicans is all about the Confederate. Confederate what? You mean are the Republicans about the Confederacy? During that time, again, the question doesn't make sense. Now, if you're referring to back then when they called it the Confederate, It was not the Republicans that was for the Confederate States of the United, as they called it, the Confederate States, South Carolina. Out of those 13 original colonies, South Carolina seceded from the Union cell. So which Confederate are you talking about? That should have been the question. It wasn't a trick question. It was a dumb question. You'll hear this all the time. People will say there's no such thing as a dumb question. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. There is such thing as a dumb question, and that was one. But when you try to gaslight people, you don't have answers. When you try to come up with your own revisionist history, you don't have answers. That's why you have folks in my chat room right now, Sal, saying that they ask you these questions, and instead of you giving them a legitimate answer, you curse them out, or you block them, or you have them thrown out of your chat. What you should have done with me is, hey, Mr. Music, I'll drop the link if you want to come up here and tell me where I was wrong at. You could have saved me some time. I could have been out doing something else, because I was going to do this as an upload. To be quite honest with yourself, I thought about it first. I thought about what I was going to say to you, because for all intents and purposes, yes, sir, this was going to be a loose nigga roundup. Yes, sir, it was. I was going to come in, I was going to, if the stream that I recorded is completely different from what I'm saying now. Discretion be the better part of valor, because I don't want you to make this about, well, he just mad because I got a higher sub count than him, because I saw what you put on your community tab. Oh, that's why they're mad. No, man. I celebrate, sincerely celebrate your success. But when I see shit like this that you're saying, that is 100% wrong. Do you think a man like me, of my caliber, of my way of living, that was going to let this go by? I don't care if I had 1 sub. I don't care if I had 10 subs. I still was going to say something about this, sir, because it's not about sub count. It's not about cash apps. It's about telling the fucking truth. It's about being historically correct, and you weren't. Now I'm gonna let you talk some more.
I'll explain it. You said, why are they all about the Confederate? I see what that question is. I don't know. I don't know. Would you like to tell us? Because this happened last time. Someone tried to ask me a little trick question, and they tried to catch me up in something. I don't know. You please, by all means, tell me. But I appreciate you for your $5 super chat. Thank you. I don't know. I don't
know.
This guy is giving us a government of the billionaire class, by the billionaire class, and for the billionaire class. Now, I trust and I know that all of you understand how demagogues function. And Trump is not original. It goes on around the world, and it has gone on historically. The way demagogues succeed is by dividing people up and by scapegoating powerless minorities.
So I'll ask yourself, is that not what Trump and his current regime is doing? Are they not dividing us by not only by class but racial lines? Are they not doing that right now? Let's take a look at what he said he was doing in D.C. Go look at D.C. right now and see how many pictures of Trump he has hanging from different buildings. It's not about crime. Because if you go look at the top 25 states that crime is the highest, I think 14, 15 of them, over half of them, are red states. And I'm going to tell you why crime is high in red states right now, Sil. It's because of the racial climate. We see it all the time. I see you over there, stream after stream after stream after stream, defending Kyle Rittenhouse, whatever that kid's name that was summarily put to sleep by Carmelo Anthony. Maybe you didn't grow up in a time to where you had to beware of folks that didn't mean you no harm, that didn't mean you no good, I should say. Maybe you grew up in a sheltered area like that. I don't know. But I know one damn thing for sure. If I'm getting surrounded by a bunch of them, it's not going to be nice. That's another. Here it is. Go look at the top. This is not me. This is not me saying this. This is fact here. You can go look at all the leading crime statistics from 2024 on up to now, Sal. And damn near every position of highness when it comes to crime is a red state or a red city. But yet Trump is in Chicago or trying to get to Chicago. Yet Trump is in D.C. Maybe it's not because of the crime rate, because D.C.'s crime rate is down. Could it be better? Of course. Do we need to stop shooting and killing each other? Of course. Is that part of the problem? Of course. But it's not the problem that Trump is trying to put in front of us. Trump wants to be a dictator. Trump wants to be a demagogue. Trump wants to be like those others, Kim Jong-un and what's his name over there, Putin. Because if you go to their capitals, the whole capital is about them. It's draped in their pictures. It's an homage to them. And that's what he's trying to do to D.C. But unfortunately, there's a group of people that are in his way, and they're called black folks. So he's using crime. Look, black people are bad, to get the majority of the country that's already, like I said, to think that, yeah, Trump is doing the right thing by sending the National Guard into these, dare I say, dark cities. But right, Zahara, unfortunately, there's a lot of these governors that are pushing back. And a big shout out to Gavin Newsom, folks. Big shout out to Gavin Newsom. The best way to stop a bully is what? Either smack him in the face or give him a dose of his own medicine. And that's exactly what Gavin Newsom is doing. I've said this back before the election of last year. I said, instead, no disrespect to Vice President Harris, but I said if they would have put Gavin Newsom in that position, he'd probably be the president of the United States right now. Yeah, I heard you over there saying, Sal, that California's economy is for shit. How could the fourth largest economy in the world be for shit? Now, if you'd have said West Virginia, you'd have had a point. Me too, H.T. Baldwin. I'm not saying that all politicians are right or correct, but compared to what we had and compared with what we got, no disrespect to Joe Biden, but hell, we was more concerned about his age, whether he was going to die in office, than we was talking about the political arena. If it had not been for the insurrection, folks, Biden's term would have went by. I would say this: he would have had a lot of accomplishments. All of his accomplishments, the chips thing, the science and the Chips and Science Act, and all those things that he did, the infrastructure, all of that took a back seat to Trump's and his group's shenanigans. But let me let you go here, Sal.
All right, that's how it's always been. It's been true in this country. It's true all over the world. Europe, it was.
Also, shout out to Malcolm D for supporting the show on the Cash App side. Thank you, greatly appreciate you. Greatly appreciate you, big homie. Let's continue.
Jews and gypsies in this country. It was gay people, black people, Latino people. Today it is trans people and the undocumented. So,
did you hear that? They're cheering for that. It's trans people and the undocumented. That's a problem. Men do not belong in bathrooms with women. Grown men do not belong in bathrooms with little girls. Grown women do not belong in bathrooms with grown men. Grown women do not belong in bathrooms with little boys. Why can't...
Okay, Sal. I would like you to point out one politician, whether on the Democratic side or the Republican side, that's pushing that issue of grown men going into little girls' bathrooms. Who is pushing that agenda? Y'all keep saying that this is an agenda on the Democratic side. Show me one piece of legislation that the Democrats have introduced that said young trans men or trans men can go into women's bathroom stalls. Wouldn't that be something that y'all would call a states' right issue sale?
Can we not understand this logic? Men should not be cast against women and vice versa. It's just that simple. Children should not have autonomy and be able to change their sex just because the parents have directed a narrative at them and implanted the seed of you can be any gender that you want to. Amazing. Michaels says, I thought the Republican Party was made for the Black Americans so they could vote because the Democratic Party wouldn't allow them to vote with them. Am I wrong? No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
That's the strategy. I mean, it's a
Okay.
well thought out strategy.
Okay, no, sir. Don't push, no, sir. Don't push the start button like that. That one statement right there negates your entire stream. How many hours you were sitting up trying to convince folks that one statement right there shut everything down you say? Because, all right, the Dixiecratic Party, the Republican Party that you now call, didn't want black people voting. They put everything in the way to make sure that we did not vote. They went into state legislatures in South Carolina and North Carolina, even though there were black folks, black men that were duly elected. They went into those state houses and they removed those black men out of office. This is historical facts, Sel. I'm not giving the North a pass because they were just as guilty as the folks that owned us, because northern folks profited off slavery just as much as southern folks did. They most certainly did. But at least they didn't have slaves. Some of them, a lot of them. I know what you're gonna say. Well, it was only 2%. You're gonna pull that the fitness chick. You're gonna pull her stat. Well, only 2% of white folks had slaves. Okay, we know that not to be true, because down here in Charleston, South Carolina, at one point in time, the black slave population outnumbered the white people population. At one point in time, there was over 65,000 black slaves here in Charleston, South Carolina, compared to 34,000 white folks. Hence the Stonewall Rebellion. Hence the other uprisings. Hence, this is how Robert was able to grab a ship and sail through the Charleston Harbor.
The serious crises facing the country and say, all right, we got a crisis here, we got a crisis here. How do we work together to resolve those crises? What a demagogue like Trump does is say, forget about the healthcare crisis, forget about climate, forget about education, forget about housing. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how we hate this group of people and that group of people. And the antidote to that, which we must bring forth, we must create, is an understanding that if we do not all stand together, we're all going to go down together.
And he's absolutely right. If we all don't stand up now, ladies and gentlemen, just like someone put down in the chat room there, like my friend Zahara put down in this, if we're not careful, we're all going to be goose stepping. Because that's what Donald Trump wants. He wants that military power like Putin has, like Khrushchev had, like all these different dictators had, to where the whole country bows down to him. And like Miss J. Lynn said today, if y'all looked at the news today, how many people got fired today? Not only did it get fired, they fired you from a what is that? FEMA. Damn near in the middle of hurricane season, when it's just about starting to turn cold, when we know folks freeze, when we know folks don't have heating, when we know that the storm season is getting cold and power lines snap, folks won't have heat in their homes. FEMA can't come rescue you no more. Why? Because they took the money from FEMA to build Alcatraz Island. It took all that money that was set aside for hurricane, tornado, natural disaster relief to build Alcatraz Island. Now, if you go back to the late 1930s, 40s, 1940, 1941, 42, 34, 45, and you go back and look through history, tell me if you don't see some of the similarities of what's going on back in Germany in the 1930s and 40s to what's going on here in the United States. They don't call them concentration camps, but that's what they are. They don't call them internment camps, but that's what they are. They don't call these folks prisoners of war, but that's what they are. Because where else can you go just walking down the street at a bus stop, sipping on a cup of coffee, that somebody jumps out on you, ties you up, throw you in the back of a van? Y'all thought that shit was in the movies. But one thing for sure, I would hate to be one of my Latino brothers and sisters right now and just walking around minding my business. You might not make it home. You might not make it home. You might end up at Alcatraz Island. You might end up being deported to some country you ain't never been in your life. Ask Albrego Garcia. Albrego, I should say, that's his name. Now, Sel, now that you've heard all of that, and you see how much of it, now let's go to the real of it. I scoured the internet to find a stream or find something that would simplify the Southern strategy as well as this 3/5 compromise. Since you were speaking about the 3/5 compromise, let's do that first, okay, Sel?
The United States Congress. Northern states don't want slaves to be counted at all, while southern states want them to be counted as a whole person. An agreement is reached, which states that each slave will be counted as 3/5 of a person when determining representation in the House of Representatives and for taxation purposes. As a result of the 3/5 compromise, southern states gain political power while excluding the slave population from the political process. The compromise remains part of the U.S. Constitution until the passage of the 13th Amendment, which abolishes slavery. The 3/5 compromise has long been a stain on the merits of the U.S. Constitution, while reminding Americans of its complicated and painful history with slavery.
For example, when I was a little kid, I wanted to be a pro wrestler, and not like grow up and become one eventually. I wanted to be one right then, right there, in that moment. Now, the thing is, even if I wrote down on a sheet of paper that I was a pro wrestler, even if I got all my friends to meet in a room and agree that I was a pro wrestler, even if I got all my friends to sign a long scroll of paper calling me a pro wrestler, none of that, in fact, makes me a professional wrestler. See, there's a disconnect there between who I say I want to be and who I actually am in that moment. This is basically the same thing that happened with the U.S. Constitution. Stay with me. America said a lot of things about who it was and what it represented. even though for millions of people, the aspirations espoused in that document didn't apply to them. And not only did it not apply to them, but it further entrenched the racial caste system that was already in place. You see, who America...
Now, so what document do you think he was talking about? What document did the founding forefathers of this so-called great country come up with to ensure that all men are created equal? All men have the right to pursue life, liberty, justice. If you weren't dark-skinned. And it's even written into the Constitution, not the word slave, but the language is plain enough to where any person that would read the Constitution, that literally sat down and read it, would understand that the people that they're referring to are slaves. So America could say what the dude was saying about the wrestling connection. I could call you a wrestler all day. I could say that you're free all day. But that document that's called the Constitution, says that I'm not. It says that I have no rights. It says that I am not a whole person. I am 3/5 of a man. I am 3/5 of a human being. How do you equate that? Can anybody come up? 3/5 of your body is what? A leg, an arm, a couple toes? What is 3/5 of a person? Has anyone figured that out yet? Is it just the head, the arm, and the torso? What is this 3/5 of a person?
America says it is.
Oh, before I go further, I won't mention the stream that I was on, but some couple of years back, I was on a live stream, and I said that I think the Constitution itself probably needs a rewrite. And you know why people got in such an uproar? Because I said, yeah, because we'll all have to be equal then. You'll have to put everybody on the same level playing field. Black, white, brown, purple, green, blue, olive, whatever fucking color you are. If you're human, there's no such thing as 3/5 of a person. That's in the living Constitution right now.
And who America has actually been have not always been neatly aligned. Far from it. It's more than a little ironic that the place where the U.S. Constitution was drafted was later called Independence Hall. Because while it's true that the United States was effectively born there, there were millions of people who called the United States home who, in many ways, became even less free following the ratification of the Constitution. Now, this is not to imply that the colonial laws we've talked about in earlier episodes weren't restricting or inhumane in their own right. They were. But the Constitution, even in its earliest days when so many people around the world weren't really sure what a constitution even was intended as an effort to solidify the legal principles of a nation. In the United States, the Constitution is the central legal document of our land. It is the thing that everything else comes back to. And in our foundational legal document, the one upon which the legal and political landscape of this country would be built, the founders failed to do away with slavery. In fact,
and like I said about the Constitution on that same stream, it helps that particular part of America get in trouble or out of trouble. They use it for one or the other. They use the Constitution to stay out of trouble, or they use the Constitution to put you in trouble. One or the other. One or the other. What's up there, APTV? Y'all check out my man APTV. Got a nice little stream going on over there. Again, brothers like him and I, we see on different, we have different opinions with everything, but it's always good dialogue down in the chat room. So I appreciate your APTV. Y'all make sure y'all get over there and like, share, and subscribe to that man's channel. Come on now. There's one of them warriors out in the street, folks. So y'all get on out there. And he funny. So let's continue.
They recommitted to it. And there were many people who felt strongly that this was a moral indictment of the country. Almost 70 years later, in 1854, the famous abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison would hold up a copy of the U.S. Constitution and burn it, calling it a covenant with death and an agreement with hell. And it didn't have to be this way. The founders could have used this as an opportunity to say, hey, look, let's start this experiment fresh. They could have said, you know what, team? We inherited slavery from the British. We just fought a war of independence. And that means we should probably make everyone independent. But instead, the majority of them were like, nah. And the thing is, so many of them knew slavery was wrong. And so many of them knew that it was something they should be ashamed of. That's why the word slave didn't actually appear anywhere in the Constitution. They didn't want it anywhere on the document because they knew that it was something history would judge them for. This matters because it demonstrates what many founders of our nation valued and where they thought that black.
And let me just speak on that part of it, folks. I don't think folks understand the gravity of what they put on this internet. The internet is forever. So are you willing to be on the right side of history, Sal, or on the wrong side of history? The stream that you gave the other night, if somebody was to go back and listen to it 20 years from now, 30 years from now, they would say, you have no idea of what you're speaking on. You're absolutely incorrect. So which part of history you want to be on? Again, this is not about your sub count, sir. This is not about how much super chats you get. This is not about how much money you make. I don't care. I salute you. Live it up. Do you. But in the course of living it up, and in the course of doing you, disseminate the right information. Educate our younger brothers and sisters. And even you can educate some of the older brothers and sisters by putting out the right information. If I know, Sal, that I have 600-700 people in my chat, there's absolutely no way I would give somebody room to say I'm wrong about something. Because why? I make sure I do my research first. I make sure that what I'm about to present to some people is infallible. And what I'm showing you today, sir, is infallible. You can't tell me that I'm wrong here because I'm not. But I can easily point out to you and your followers that you were wrong. I'm promoting white guilt. Listen, it ain't my fault, HT Ball One, if they're guilty about something. It ain't my fault that when you go back and look at their founding fathers, that they're not as great as they used to be. All those white guys with the white powdered wigs, dressed up with the ascot and the black suit. It ain't my fault that they found out that their so-called heroes was not as great as they thought they were. Because all of my heroes that I can go back and look at, mine is, I'm sure some people will say, well, Dr. Martin Luther King was a womanizer. Yeah, but he didn't own slaves. That's exactly it, APTV. And that's exactly what I try to do. I try to have honest discord. You and I can sit around in a stream and scream and yell at each other all day. It accomplishes nothing. But if you have a point of opinion and I have a point of opinion that doesn't match or it doesn't gel with each other, I'm sure you and I could sit down and talk about it. I wouldn't go back and hold a stream saying, you know, that APTV, man, that nigga ain't shit. Because 9 times out of 10, folks, when you correct one of these so-called upper echelon content creators, that's the first thing they do. They come at your sub count or they say you ain't making no money. Sir, I'm not here to make money. If I was here to make money, Sal, you can best believe you would see me a whole lot more. I wouldn't be out there holding a weed eater. I wouldn't be out there riding a lawnmower. I wouldn't be out there picking up sticks and leaves and stuff like that. I'd be right here. I know, and that's the easiest thing to do. It's again, HT Ball One. It's always to say, well, we're just hitting on white guilt. Well, what they're guilty of. You had to have done something wrong, right, to feel guilty about something. Am I right?
Black people should be on the social hierarchy. On an economic front, slavery was an incredibly lucrative business, and the founders knew that, many of them personally. Of the 55 delegates at the Constitutional Convention, about 25 owned enslaved people.
You see what I mean, Sel? Again, I knew that before he said it. Why? I learned that probably in the 11th grade, 12th grade. That's always been my question to the teachers. How can these folks say that all men are created equal and all men are free? And they call this the Declaration of Independence, but they still held slaves. That's always been my question to the educators. How could the Constitution be held in such high regard when embedded in the Constitution, it gives folks the legal right to own other folks? So how could this be such a great document that people are unwilling to rewrite and correct? I didn't say correct the whole of the Constitution, but correct the parts of it that are incorrect.
Conflict manifests itself in two ways: the 3/5 Compromise and the Slave Trade Clause. Let's start with the 3/5 Compromise. Article 1 of the Constitution set up a government with two legislative chambers.
Now, Sel, this is where you want to pay attention,
each state gets 2 senators. But in the House of Representatives, representation is determined by the population of the state. And these newly minted states had very different compositions. Northern states were more densely populated with white citizens, while southern states were heavily populated with enslaved black people. What this did was create a dilemma. The colonists were unsure if and how they should acknowledge enslaved black people as members of the population, and to what extent they should be counted as citizens in the context of allotting states political representation. Let's go to the thought bubble. Northern delegates did not support including enslaved black people in the population of the southern states, largely because it would give the South more political power. But the southern delegates knew they wouldn't be able to compete in the House of Representatives if enslaved people weren't counted. And this is where we get something called the 3/5 Compromise. The 3/5 Compromise was a clause in the Constitution that defined enslaved individuals as 3/5 of a human. It was placed in Article 1, Section 2, and it stated that representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within this union, according to their respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of free persons, including those bound to service for a term of years, and excluding Indians not taxed, 3/5 of all other persons.
Okay.
3/5 of...
Let's stop there right there. They excluded the Indians, even though the Indians didn't have a right to vote. They excluded the Indians, but they said those people that were what? In servitude, they were talking about slaves. They just did not put the word slave into the Constitution because, as the man said earlier, this would be a source of contention later on. They wanted history to look at the founding fathers favorably. You can't be looking upon as favorable if you allow slaves, if it's embedded into this very thing that you say all men are created equal and free under. So the word slave was intentionally left out and replaced by what you see on the screen.
A person. That doesn't even make sense to say out loud. And it sounds absurd because it is absurd. Even though the South would have loved for black people to fully count for political purposes, this legislative compromise, which turned black people into fractions, came to serve as a larger metaphor for the way that black people were seen by many as less than human. The implications of this decision were profound. It changed the dynamics of the House of Representatives and the Electoral College. Without the 3/5 Compromise, some historians even argue that Thomas Jefferson would have never won the election of 1800. Thanks, Thought Bubble. The 3/5 Compromise wasn't the only negotiation about what slavery would look like in the new United States. The Slave Trade Clause was outlined in Article 1, Section 9, Clause 1 of the Constitution. Though it doesn't use the word slave, it was one of the original provisions of the Constitution that addressed slavery as a policy issue. The text says, The migration or importation of such persons as any of the states now existing shall think proper to admit shall not be prohibited by the Congress prior to the year 1808, but a tax or duty may be imposed on such importation.
Okay, let's stop that right there. 1808, folks. So basically, the United States of America, this newly formed nation that was formed in what, 1700s, late 1700s, 1775, 1776, and all this other thing, Independence Hall and all this other thing, 1776. They put into the Constitution, into the Declaration of Independence, Constitution, whatever one you want to look at, that these folks that were migrated or that were basically shipped into this country, we weren't going to address that until 1808. And even when it was addressed in 1808, when was slavery ended in this country? 1865. So even though the United States said 1808, we're going to stop you from importing slaves, they still allowed the practice to go on here in the United States, and especially in the South. So when you hear folks like the Angry Man and the BGSs and all these other goofballs all over the world saying that antebellum slavery was different from regular slavery, I'd like to know which part of it was. A slave is a slave is a slave. But then they'll come up with this, well, black people own slaves. Okay. That doesn't make them right. That makes them a part of society. That makes them part of what you are. What those folks were doing back in the day that was holding slaves are the same type people that you are today that will sit on these live streams and spout that white supremacist rhetoric to folks that look like you. Like I said, Sambos came on the boat too. Sambos rode on the boat with good black men too. Boss, he ain't working, came on the boat too. Now, no stress of the imagination, Cell, am I calling you a Sambo? Because I'm not. But sometimes you should check the information that you put out, because you might piss somebody like me off. One thing I can't stand is somebody knowingly putting out bad information. I'd rather you not say nothing. I'd rather you talk about women's problems. I'd rather you talk about Tinkerbell than try to paint this revisionist history. I'm going to stop talking.
Not exceeding $10 for each person. This is basically a really fancy way of saying
$10.
That the federal government cannot limit how many individuals were imported to the United States. According to legal scholars Gordon Lloyd and Jenny S. Martinez, when they said any such persons, they clearly meant enslaved people of African descent. They also point out that this clause was created to be another compromise between the northern and southern colonies. It allowed for slavery to exist in the South, where it directly sustained the economy, and allowed for slavery to remain illegal at the local level, where it had already been abolished. But what it did allow was for all the colonies to indirectly economically benefit from slavery. And the fact that so many across the country, North
and notice he said all the colonies. He didn't say the South. So you folks that was in the North, even though y'all said slavery was bad and no, you didn't want it, you still allowed the practice to go on. You still was okay with the South. The only reason that you folks got upset at the South for holding slaves is because the South was trying to steal your power. Even in the so-called Emancipation Proclamation, that was not Lincoln's idea. The Emancipation Proclamation, the freeing the slaves, was kind of like, well, we might as well. And this is, you're going to hear it in a little bit, where someone's going to mention states' rights. And this is what we see all the politicians of today's doing. States' rights, states' rights, states' rights. What state in the United States, or whether it's the 13 original colonies or the 50 states that we have now, have the right to own me as a grown-ass man? None of them. I couldn't have been a slave because I would have jumped off the boat. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'd have jumped off the boat.
South benefited financially from slavery is part of what allowed it to sustain itself for so long. South Carolina had a unique reliance on the transatlantic slave trade because their enslaved workers died at higher rates relative to places like Virginia or Maryland. They were particularly insistent on this point.
Climate, the sugarcane fields, the tobacco fields, the tea field, the tea farms. But that sun beaming down on them from sun up to sundown. That's why more slaves were imported here into the Carolinas and the Virginias, because of the fucking heat. They died of heat exhaustion. They died of all different things related to being out in the sun all day long. No water at the crack of the whip. No food. And you got the nerve to sit over their cell and let these folks tell you that you're right. You got the nerve to go over there and sit down and say that the Republican Party of the 1800s was okay, was didn't want to do anything about the slaves. That the only reason they wanted the slaves is so they could get power. That is idiotic in itself. Your argument has no merit. And for those of you that cheered that on, that tells me what part of the world they live in. Delusion. Yeah, that is a state. It's right next to the island of misfits.
So much that some feared they wouldn't join the Union if there were constitutional limits placed on the slave trade. So even though this document was written without saying the word slave, what this clause essentially said was, until 1808, the migration or importation of enslaved individuals of African descent cannot be regulated by the federal government, but only by the states, to allow for each entity to make the best economic decision for their white citizens. At the end of the day, Southern states were able to benefit by keeping their property, and Northern states, we shouldn't forget, also got to benefit from the impact of slavery on the Northern economy. The Slave Trade Clause prevented action on the transatlantic slave trade for 20 years, and the Three-Fifths Compromise lasted for a lot longer than that. And it took a civil war and cost hundreds of thousands of lives to get there. So, what can we say about the Constitutional Convention? I mean,
I don't know if you
what can we
folks,
say
I don't
about
know
the
if you,
founding fathers?
I don't know if you folks can
So
hear me. I
often
think
we're
I'm
talking-
working a little bit. Give me a one or two in the listening lounge if you folks can hear me. But just like the man said just now, Sal, from 1807, which the British outlawed slavery in that part of the world. 1808, where the United States did not allow the implementation of slavery. The practice was kept up for another 75 years, sir, here in this country. 75 years, Sal. But yet you're over there spouting incorrect information. Again, this is not personal. This is a correction and instruction, bro. This is not a loose nigga roundup. It could have been. Get your facts straight, bro. Put the right information out there. The Three-Fifths Compromise was not in the 1950s, sir. The Three-Fifths Compromise happened during the construction and the penning and the ratification of said Constitution. Now, since I spoke on the Southern strategy, that was another thing that you were wrong about. So let's take that off. Let's take this off. And let's talk about the Southern strategy, Shell.
Here's how I would approach that issue as a statistician, or no, as a psychologist, which I'm not, is how abstract you handle the race thing. In other words, you start out, and now you don't quote me on this. You start out in 1954 by saying nigger, nigger, nigger. By 1968, you can't say nigger, that hurts you, backfire, so you say stuff like force busing, states' rights and all that stuff. And you get tracked now, you're talking about cutting taxes and all of these things you're talking about are totally economic things, and a byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites. And subconsciously, maybe that is part of it. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if it is getting that abstract and that coded, that we're doing away with the racial problem one way or the other. You follow me?
And that was Lee Atwater there, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of these guys like to quote that as that he was just they shouldn't have, that particular clip should have never gotten out, but it did. This was supposed to be someone recorded him saying this exact words. See, didn't you hear yourself 1954 when it was all right to say nigga, 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 nigga. But the closer you get to the 60s, into the 70s, and into the 80s, you had to start using dog whistle words like busing, like taxes, like states' rights, and all these different things to ensure that black people either did not vote, was not, could not live in their areas, was not privy to loans, was not privy to the, as they say, the American dream. Now, I don't know how in God's green earth, or as The Rock would say, I don't know how in the blue hell you was able to connect the 1800s to 1954. They sure do, don't they, APT? They sure do. They expose themselves sooner or later because, as they say, what's done in the dark always comes into the light. There's a whole lot more of these Lee Atwaters out there, folks. Present-day Lee Atwaters. There's a whole lot more of them. Megyn Kelly. What's the lady's name? The Jillian Michaels. She's raising a black child, but she has these highly racial inadequate views. So that tells me that's what she believes in. She believes that white people here in this country should not have not all the blame of slavery laid on their shoulders. Who else? Who else should the blame come to? If I go rob a bank and you nowhere around and the police come to your house and I told you, yeah, hey, Shar, last week I went out and robbed a bank. And police come to your house and say, hey, Shar, did Mr. Music tell you he robbed the bank? I guarantee you Shar gonna say, yeah, and I ain't had shit to do with it. Craig made him do it. But she's not gonna take the fall for me. I wouldn't want her to. I know it's getting off the subject a little bit, but damn, you got to stop owning up to your own responsibility, Sel. And that bullshit that you put out the other night, you should have known better. You should have known somebody like me was going to come and take a visit to this. Closet racist. If you had white skin, that's what I would have called you. And that's no lie. If you would have had white skin, that's what I would call you, a closet racist. Southern strategy, huh? Let's continue.
Because obviously sitting around saying we want to cut taxes, we want to cut this, and is much more abstract than even the busing thing. And a hell of a lot more abstract than nigger. So any way you look at it, race is coming on the back burner.
And that was Lee Atwater there. I thought I got the right one out there, the right Southern strategy. Let me hold on a second. Let me play some music for y'all and I'll be right back. Okay, let me pull this off the screen. I thought I had the right one, Cell. I downloaded two. Don't go nowhere, Cell. I know you're in the cloud somewhere. Don't leave yet, bro. Don't believe. I'm not going to talk bad about you. I promise you. This is not about you personally, brother. It is not personal. This is all about the bad information that you put out the other day on your stream. Correction and instruction, bro. Ain't about your sub count. It ain't about how much money you make. It's about you putting out bad information. Now, let me give y'all a little music. I was gonna play some DMX, but it probably get the stream shut down, so I'll just continue. Y'all listen to that for the please.
That every time. I just want to talk about it because if you're in an AP government class or
the way you look at it, race is coming on the back burner.
All right, I think I got the right one here. So let's take a look at it. There we go. Now, before we go any further, I know sometimes people will say, you're just giving this from the black version of it. So I went and found me a nice little white dude with some glasses. He looked like he a nerd. He looked like he's smart. So maybe some of y'all brothers, because you don't like hearing it from black men, y'all will sit around and listen to Jay Prince talk shit all day long. But when it comes to right information, y'all won't listen to me. Y'all sit around and listen to Tommy Sotomayor all day long. Disseminate bullshit information. Y'all sit around and listen to Angry Man all day long telling you how great he is. Telling you that he's the greatest content creator since Superman flew around this bitch. So I'm going to use the little white dude. Here we go.
Hey guys, welcome to Hip Use History, as we're going to have a little bit of a poli-sci talk and get jiggy with what's called the Southern Strategy. Just a nice little talk. No pop-up, no pop-downs, no crazy nostalgic TV music. Except for that one, I'm going to do that every time. I just want to talk about it because if you're in an AP government class or a government class, you need to know it. And if you're a lifelong learner, you got an itch for the learning, and I'm here to scratch it. That was creepy. So let's talk about the Southern Strategy, which is a political strategy that's embraced by the Republican Party, really beginning in the 1950s, but big time in the 1960s and all the way up through the 1980s, and some people would argue today, in order to gain white Southern votes and also white suburban votes in the North. But the two big words I'm going to use are de-alignment and realignment. And
Okay, Sal, do you hear that? The two key words that I want you to understand here is de-alignment and realignment, because it's basically what you content creators are doing now. You're de-aligning yourself with black people, black folks, and realigning yourself with those racist talking points. That's basically what you're doing. What's up there, Zero? How you doing, good brother? Good to see you, my man. Appreciate you stopping through.
in political science terms, that just simply means at certain points in American history, groups of people de-align from political party because that political party stops representing their interests. And if the other party is smart, they'll do something to attract that group, and that's called realignment. So when we're talking about the Southern strategy, now I'm going to use the words in a sentence, we're talking about the de-alignment of white Southern voters from the Democratic Party and then realigning with the Republican Party. And that's kind of the way it is now.
Okay, Sal, did you hear that part? The white Southern Democratic voters, they had to figure out a way to realign them into the Northern Republican voters. So this was what Lee Adder was talking about, the Southern strategy, where you can't say the N-word no more. You got to be abstract about it, brother. And this is what they're doing now, except for Trump is just all out. He ain't dog whistling, he bullhorning. But from 1954, 1960s, like with Johnson, he wasn't really for the Civil Rights Bill, folks. That was just something to try and keep him the president. Okay. A lot of folks say that Lyndon Johnson did more for black folks than any other president. Debatable. Yeah, they sick, Shar. Yeah, I know. I wish I Black Hawk. Sometimes I say the same thing, but unfortunately for me, I guess I give a damn. I really do. I guess I give a damn. So this is why I do what I do. This is why I point out the inconsistencies and the incorrectness of our younger brothers and sometimes our older brothers. Because if I don't do it, nobody will. Well, some people will. But a lot of them won't do it just because it's wrong. A lot of them will do it to create strife, to create an opportunity for a super chat. It's a way to make money. So I understand what you're saying, that I'm wasting my time, but reach one, teach one. So maybe after this, somebody who maybe not nobody from sales camp, but somebody who just happened to pass by it and said, I didn't know shit about the Southern strategy. I didn't know shit about the 3/5 compromise. So sometimes when I do these streams, it's not all about the person that I'm directing it to. If that makes sense to you, brother.
Now, for the most part, and of course this is a broad statement, but the Democratic Party kind of represents more of the interest of the northern states, and the Republican Party maybe more of the southern states in a very broad way. That's opposite land of where we used to be. So, of course, if you know your history, you know the Democratic Party was born in the South. It's the party of Andrew Jackson. It's the party of slavery. It's going to be the...
Did you hear that, Sal? The Democratic Party was born in the South. It's the party of Andrew Jackson. It's the party of slavery. Did you hear that, sir? That is historical fact. You cannot get around that. If you was walking out in the bushes and you saw a little four-legged animal that was black and had a big white stripe down his tail, wouldn't it be a skunk? You can call it whatever you want to, but it's still a skunk. Some folks call them polecats, but it's still a skunk. You even go get up the genius scientific name for it, but it's still a skunk. So the Democratic Party, or like a leopard, just because it changed, just because it moves to a different part of the world, that doesn't mean to change its spots. That's what the Southern strategy was all about. How could we convince the poor white Southerners to vote for us? Because we're losing. We got to give them something to be mad about. What your boy said? You give the poorest white man the idea that he's better than the richest black man, and they'll let you pick your pockets. Lyndon Baines Johnson said that. But there's a lot of black people around here who say that Lyndon Baines Johnson was all about black people. No, he wasn't. No, he was not. Absolutely wasn't. But let's continue on with this little lesson here, Sal. Oh, I moved it the wrong way. My bad.
Hey guys, welcome to Hip Use History. Today, in order to gain white Southern votes and also white suburban votes in the North. But the two big words I'm going to use are de-alignment and realignment. And in political science terms, that just simply means at certain points in American history, groups of people de-align from political party because that political party stops representing their interests. And if the other party is smart, they'll do something to attract that group. And that's called realignment. So when we're talking about the Southern strategy, now I'm going to use the words in a sentence, we're talking about the de-alignment of white Southern voters from the Democratic Party and then realigning with the Republican Party. And that's kind of the way it is now, for the most part, and of course this is a broad statement, but the Democratic Party kind of represents more of the interest of the northern states, and the Republican Party maybe more of the southern states in a very broad way. That's opposite land of where we used to be. So of course, if you know your history, you know the Democratic Party was born in the South. It's the party of Andrew Jackson. It's the party of slavery. It's going to be the party of Jim Crow. They're racists, right? That's what we're talking about. But yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, it's a party of populism. It's born out of kind of the anti-elitism, the fear of the big banks and the Northerners and industry controlling big government. They're all about states' rights for economic reasons, but also maybe a little bit of the slavery as well. They don't want slaves being free and such, so they believe in the states' rights concept. So if you're a white Southerner, you're definitely a Democrat. If it's before the Civil War and probably after, you're a Democrat. And the Northern Republican Party was founded by Abraham Lincoln, and it was founded on the idea of having a strong federal government, saving the Union, and eventually that's going to mean ending slavery. So if they're going to end slavery and give blacks the right to citizenship and the right to vote, and you're a white Southerner, not liking the Republican Party. So to have something happen where you're going to join that.
So again, Sal, do you see why people, how do you say compare the Republican Party of today to the Democratic Party of yesteryear? Aren't the Republicans doing the very same thing with this gerrymandering, how they tried to gerrymander Texas to where a sitting member of Congress, meaning Jasmine Crockett, had to go vote for herself in another district? That doesn't make sense. So they got mad at Gavin Newsom for pulling the same stunt. All of a sudden, it's illegal in California, but it's all right in Texas. Just like when Donald Trump went to Georgia and said, I need you to find me 1,180 votes. Those particular Republican folks that were sitting around at that time said, no, we're not doing it. But if that was to happen in this climate right now, I guarantee you somebody would have found them votes for Donald Trump. Like I said before, y'all give Donald Trump a second term, he gonna figure out the mistakes that he did last time, meaning he gonna put more yes people around him. He's gonna move those guardrails like the General Milley's, like the other people that walked out of his cabinet that says, fuck it, I'm not doing this. All he has around him now is lackeys. I posted something on my community tab. Linda McMahon, the head of the Department of Education. All she did was take a couple French classes. Never taught school in her life. All the qualified teachers in the world. You don't think that Trump could have chosen one of them for the Department of Education? As fucked up as it already is. How about the Department of Defense? You got a drunk in Pete Hegseth, a womanizer in Pete Hegseth, running the military. If I was still in the military and I spoke with my other fellow comrades that was in the military, a lot of us said, you ought to have to put me in the brig. You'd have to frag me because I would not take an order from Pete Hegseth. Stephen Baker stayed low key. Nobody talked about that guy, but he is the guy that's behind all this. Let's erase black history. It's not Trump. Yeah, Trump hates it. But do y'all really believe that Trump goes to the Smithsonian Institution? Y'all really believe that Trump he does not know that you can't check out books from the Library of Congress? He thinks you can literally go to the Library of Congress and check out a book. What is the Library of Congress? Sal, do you know? What is it there for?
Political party that fought you in the Civil War. We have to have a strategy. Something has to occur. So following Reconstruction, we could see right away the Republican Party, they have all these freed blacks that can vote for the Republican Party, but they're not going to focus on their issues. In fact, in 1868, when Grant ran, they only gave 5% of their war chest to Southern races. They weren't really interested in that. And in fact, as time goes on, they're going to give up on the South, and they're really just going to utilize the Republican Party of the South really for nominations for the president. Then they're going to concentrate in the North on getting votes. And that's going to allow those white Democrats to coalesce and control the South. That's called the Solid South. All through these elections, as you're seeing me flip them on the board, or as you're seeing them in front of you right now, you can see that the Democratic Party always wins the South. They always win the South. We should also mention that this means the Republican Party, although they might be kind of taking for granted these African Americans who belong to the party of Lincoln, they're the ones that for the most part are supporting civil rights. Even when we get to the 1964 Civil Rights Act, it was more Republicans that supported that than Democrats. But something occurs.
Did you hear that,
really
Sal? And this is one of the let me stop that. So this is one of the reasons why the majority of black folks shifted to the Republican Party in the 1960s, not 50s, not 1954. This is why the majority of black people shifted to the Republican Party, because they were more in line with our political aspirations, or our what rights we wanted, than the Dixie Democrats. The Dixiecrats, the Democrats had to figure out a way to get that black vote. So when folks tell you now, when you hear these content creators, or you hear anyone saying that your black vote don't count, if it didn't count, folks, why they always trying to stop you from doing it? If it didn't make a difference, why are they putting up all these guardrails to stop black folks from voting if it didn't make a difference?
In Texas in 1956. Now, remember, 1954 is a watershed year because that's Brown versus Board of Ed. That's going to wake up white Southerners to the idea that changes are coming and you ain't going to like it, namely integration. So in 1956, something interesting happens, and it's a race in Texas, a congressional race based in Dallas. Bruce Alger was his name, and he had won in 1954 as a Republican in the South, but he was a moderate Republican. His stance on race was one of gradualism, like it's going to occur, let's work with the tides of change. And then he made a strategic change in 1956, and as a Republican, he ran as an avid segregationalist. And part of this wasn't because he had a change of heart, but was because there was a change in the community. And namely, this had to do with the First Baptist Church in Dallas, which was run by the guy by the name of W.A. Griswold. And this was a man who believed that the Bible verified that we should be segregationalists, and the people in the communities ate this.
And see, there goes another one of those things that when you throw that argument out to the white evangelicals or the white Christians, how could you be a Christian? How could you say you believe in this higher power? How could you say that you believe in God? How could you say that you're a righteous man when you believe that someone has a different color from you, different skin color from you, is not a man as well? This is the root cell of the Southern strategy. This is where it came in. As you see, that one moderate Republican won, even though he was, as we said earlier, he was a closet racist, but he was smart enough to figure out how to win. So the other Republicans said, how did he win? Even though his stance is the same as, I know. So let's find us some more moderate Republicans, put them in places by re-gerrymandering and reassigning voting areas to where folks like Marjorie Taylor Greene can win, folks like Lauren Boebert could win, folks like Lee Atwater, folks like Strom Thurmond, all these folks that if it had not been for gerrymandering and what we're seeing right here in front of us, the Southern strategy, none of these folks would have been in power. Sal?
Up. And this sends a message in Texas that this is the thing for the Republican Party to do. And then John Towers in 1961 becomes a senator all the way up to the 1980s in Texas, and he was an avid segregationalist as well. It worked for them. So now as we move into a national model, the Republican Party has probably taken notice that this worked in Texas. So first in 1964, LBJ is going to crush Barry Goldwater. Now Barry Goldwater is not a racist, but Barry Goldwater is an avid ideologist, and he believes with all of his heart that states' rights is the way to go, that the Constitution should be read strictly, that we shouldn't have big government programs like Medicaid and Medicare, and we shouldn't have the federal government getting involved in elections and civil rights. That should be left to the people. Did I say not go for civil rights? I did. But that doesn't mean he was a racist. But in 1964, as you look at that map, Barry Goldwater gets crushed everywhere except for the deep. Republican just won the Deep South.
Except for the Deep South. So although folks knew that Goldwater really wasn't a racist, he was still not for the equality of black and brown people. But his running mate was a little bit worse. That's why he got crushed. And we can go through history and we can repeat examples of this. We can go back to talking about Bush and Dukakis. Remember that? The Willie Horton incident where they let this criminal out on a weekend pass. Willie Horton got out on a weekend pass and went and murdered 2 folks. And so they use his crime to say that all of us are like this. This was the original. That's another one of those switches to where they said, you know what? Let's use another dog whistle here. Let's use one of these dog whistles. I'll be right back.
Got crushed everywhere else. But if there's a way, the Republican Party thinks to itself, to take advantage of this concept that his ideology got those racist votes and he wasn't racist, maybe we can come up with a strategy for that. And that's what Richard Nixon does in 1968, and he's pretty successful. Now, in 1968, as you look at that map, you can see that he doesn't win all of the South. We have George Wallace running as an independent. He's still a Democrat, but he is de-aligned, creating an independent party, and he is sucking votes away from Richard Nixon. This shows you that those white Southerners, they do not want to vote for a Republican if they can help it. But they're not going to vote for a pro-civil rights Democrat either. So basically what we can boil this down to is that the Southern strategy is kind of using what's called dog whistle politics, where rather than saying racist things and being a racist, you appeal to the issues that appeal to the racists. So, for instance, you talk about states' rights. Ronald Reagan, when he began his campaign, Ronald Reagan, I'm not saying he's a racist, but he begins his campaign in Philadelphia, Mississippi. This is where 3 civil rights were.
Right. What's the significance of that? If you're running for the presidency of the United States of America, you go to the very place to where, which really, to me, if you've seen the movie Mississippi Burning, although it's Hollywood staged or whatever, but it's pretty historical and accurate. So you have to think about this. This is where the 3 civil rights workers were murdered at. Now, as a presidential candidate, why would you start your presidential run there? Who are you trying to attract? By starting your campaign for the presidency of the United States in a known racist town, Philadelphia, where 3 civil rights people got murdered, buried in a levee, dug up. But you went there to kick your campaign off.
Workers were murdered by the Klan, and he starts his campaign talking about states' rights in Philadelphia, Mississippi. That's kind of the idea of the Southern strategy. Now, Richard Nixon called it the silent majority, and he's not only appealing to these Southern whites with these issues, but also kind of urbanites and suburbanites that are white in the North as well, kind of the Archie Bunkers of the world. If you've never seen Archie Bunker, watch All in the Family. You're going to love it, kids, I'm telling you. So this Southern strategy, it might be about being against busing, being for tax cuts or for welfare cuts, things that appeal to the racist without saying racist things. So So the way to battlerize this is to actually listen to the words of some of these campaign managers and strategists that used this strategy, the Southern strategy. And one of them was Lee Atwater. And he was kind of the bulldog of the Republican Party. He's kind of the brain behind the operation. And you can hear him right now talking about the Southern.
Okay, we heard that, so we'll listen to that. But just take Lee Atwater out of this equation right now and put Stephen Baker there, because he is the bulldog of the Republican Party right now. He's folks, you may agree or disagree with me, but go look at Stephen Baker and go look at his record. Go look at him as a young man. Go look at him and what his stances are on race relations, as they call it, black and white people in particular. He looks like somebody that fled, back there in Germany back in the day. He's looked like his name should be Hans Krautsmeyer or something like that, not Stephen Miller. Looked like his first name should be Hans. And y'all know what I mean by that too, don't you?
Strategy.
You start out in 1954 by saying nigger. By 1968, you can't say nigger. That hurts your backfire. So you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. Abstract now, you're talking about cutting taxes, and all of these things you're talking about are totally economic things, and the byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than white.
So when Richard Nixon is talking about the counterculture and how we need law and order, to Archie Bunker in the North, that means we have to, make sure these kids aren't smoking dope on the street. But to that guy in Mobile, Alabama, who's a white Southerner, that means not letting these African Americans getting out of hand. He didn't have to be racist to say that, to appeal.
And isn't that what they're doing right now in D.C., Baltimore, Los Angeles, Chicago? Isn't those the same words that we heard them using back in the 1950s and 60s are the very same words that Trump and his regime is using today? That dog whistle politics, talking about there's crime running rampant. These young people, we're in D.C. D.C. itself, folks. Crime is at an all-time low. Whereas, again, if you go to the red states, Texas, Louisiana, Georgia, Tennessee, you will see that the crime rate is high. So why have not the powers that be sent the National Guard into those cities? Why not?
To the racist. So when Ronald Reagan says we need to go after the welfare queens, he didn't call out African American women in a racist way, really, but that's what white Southerners heard. At one point, it was said that Reagan was testing phrases, and when he referred to young black men on welfare, he at one time tried young bucks. That didn't work out very well. He changed it. You don't want to look like a racist. You don't want to sound like a racist. You probably aren't a racist, but you need those votes. And that's the idea of the Southern strategy. So what do you guys think? Do you think that the Republican Party actually did employ this Southern strategy? Was it subconsciously that did it? Were they doing it overtly? Was it a racist thing to do, a non-racist thing to do? Are they still doing it today? What do you guys think about politics? Why don't you leave it down in the comments below? I certainly didn't cover everything, but I just kind of want you to understand the idea of the Southern strategy and how white Southerners who de-aligned from the Democratic Party over civil rights realigned over issues like law and order, welfare reform, and states' rights to the Republican Party in the period of history from 1960 to the 1980s. All right, guys, there you go. I hope your brain's a lot bigger. If you haven't checked it out, you can see we have tons of videos. What are you waiting for? Tell all of your friends. Go to subscribe to Hip Hughes History on YouTube or check us out at www.hiphughes.com. We can't wait for you to join the family of learning. And now I'm going to say it because I believe it with all of my heart. Where attention goes, energy flows, and we'll see you guys next time.
All righty there, ladies and gentlemen. There it is. Where energy flows, attention flows sometimes. So again, I don't know how much of this you're going to pay attention to. I don't care if you listen to the whole stream. I don't care if you only listen to 2 minutes of it. But I do care that you get the information that you're passing on to your folks. I do care whether it's right or wrong. I do care about that. It does make a difference to me. Even if one person has never heard of the Southern strategy before, which I don't see how, not unless you're of a certain age. If there's one person that's never heard of the 3/5 compromise, I don't see how. But, sometimes folks just don't know. If you don't know, you don't know. But I hope I can educate at least you and somebody else on to make sure you don't go out and put out that information again. Make sure the information that you put out about the Southern strategy and the 3/5 compromise, sir, is right. That's all. It's not about yourself. It's not about your sub count sale, because I don't care. It's not about how much super chats you make. I don't care. It's not about how many views you got. I don't care. I guess you'll have to count me in those views because I watch you. I don't come, and the only time I type in your chat room now is when I hear something that I don't like. Other than that, I'm just floating in the clouds. This nigga right here. That's what I say sometimes. This. But anyway, folks, time for me to get on up out of here. Like, share, and subscribe if you don't mind. I'm sorry if I borged a little bit, but I would I let a few folks come up, but gotta go, gotta run, gotta make some run somewhere. So again, like, share, and subscribe if you don't mind. Sell, if you do, get a hold of this video, sir. And anytime that you would like to have a grown conversation about what we're talking about here, I'd love to sit down with you. Love to sit down and talk with you, chop it up with you, as they say, because this is the Chop Shop, sir. And this is what we do here. It's exactly what we do. Let me see what else here. Thank you, Miss J. Lynn. Let me shout out to thank you, Zero, for stopping in. Thank you, Char Willie, for stopping in. Thank you, HT Ball 1 for stopping in. Thank you, APTV, for stopping in. Thank you, Char Willie, of course. And let's see who else I had up in there. HT Ball 1, I said you, Zahara. Thank you. Always good seeing you sitting up in the front row. Who else we got up here? Taylor, thank you so very much for stopping through. I'm trying to scroll through and make sure I catch everybody. Black Hawk, my dog, man, appreciate you really hanging out there with me. Appreciate all your support, good brother. Really do. And in that, y'all have a good day. And I gotta go. But before I do, y'all know I gotta play this.
Look, all you motherfuckers been snitching for him and shit. Now you standing up in here and goddamn it talking about preacher. Fuck that nigga. Fuck that. I'm gonna shoot your ass too, motherfucker. Keep going. You gonna get shot too, nigga. You gonna get shot. God bless the fool, goddammit. God bless the fool. Now, I'm gonna tell y'all something. I'm gonna end this goddamn thing. Look, where's that goddamn money bowl at? Who got that money bowl? We taking that money right now before you leave this bitch. We ain't leaving out here for free, motherfucker. Yeah. Y'all know the motherfucker ain't no good. You want, look,